The introduction. Welcome everyone to the fourth SogetiLabs webinar. Thank you for joining us. The agenda today, as you have it in front of you, we'll have Lee Sperberg, who is a new fellow from the US who just joined, and we will give a presentation about architecture in delivery. So Lee, thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing with us this new topic that we have not discussed yet. I'm pretty sure we'll have some good feedback from the people that I see attending in the list. And the last 20 minutes will be a SogetiLabs topic, internal life. We have Lara Irwin with us from the UK that will present a new tool that you might be interested in using, which are podcasts, and she will tell us more about it. So Lee, if you want to start, we are all ready and listening to you.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lee Sperberg. I'm a senior consultant in the U.S. in Dallas, Texas. And as Charlie said, I'm new to the organization. New to SogetiLabs. I've been with Sogeti for about 18 years, primarily here in Dallas, and done a variety of work. And in the last 4, 5, 6 years, have worked primarily in the enterprise architecture and solution architecture world. And so I've found some things. I have some opinions on enterprise architecture and solution architecture. And so I put them together into a deck because one of the things that I get questions about is how to actually, enterprise architecture is great, but how to actually practically use it or how to use it on a day-to-day basis. So I put together some ideas and some thoughts, and would love the conversation around some of your experiences or what you think about this topic. Really, some of the things that come to mind whenever I talk with customers are, does it really matter? Does an architecture at any level really matter? What value would it bring to the organization if my company or my organization is really having trouble just keeping the lights on a daily basis? Why should I worry about architecture? That is just a lot of extra work that's going to get in my way. One of the other questions that I have gotten around architecture or just repeatable work in general is that really desirable? If I have an IT shop who does primarily custom application work, is that really a repeatable process? Is there really a repeatable process there that I need to be able to repeat? Being able to do with every one of my projects, or is each one going to be different? So those are some of the things that I hear from customers. And before this presentation, I got an email from someone who wasn't going to be able to attend, but wanted to ask the question: how do we incorporate change, business change, technology change into the enterprise architecture? How do we make sure that the things we're doing today aren't already old? How do we make sure that they still matter? So some of these questions we maybe won't necessarily answer, but at least we'll touch on during this talk, and hopefully, like I said, get some of your opinions on these things as well. Just to level set, the different definitions or the different thoughts that people have on architecture, I've found that these definitions or these terms translate relatively well. Software architecture, starting at the bottom end of the slide, the software architecture is really just someone who it's an understanding of a technology, whether it be a coding language or whether it be a tool, but truly understanding, having a deep knowledge of a particular tool or piece of technology. This is very desirable because often, either during the development, you want to make sure that you're building efficient applications and tools, or issues or problems come about, and you want to make sure that you have someone who can actually answer these things. Project architecture is about, I always think about it in terms of bringing many of those pieces of software together to bring it to be a cohesive system or a cohesive landscape in the IT. So project architecture is being able to see the different pieces of architecture and tools across the enterprise and bringing them together to either supply the answer to one business need, or possibly to build foundations for other systems to run on. So the software architecture, again, individual technology, project architecture, sometimes called solution architecture, would be across many of these. Enterprise architecture often is less about technology and more about alignment alignment of IT to the business need. I've heard it said a couple of different ways, and hopefully this translates. Hopefully this translates well. But basically, if IT is doing anything that is not in the business goals, then IT should not be doing it. And that's a basic idea. Apologize, my computer went to sleep. Basically, if IT is doing something that is not in the immediate business goals, then it shouldn't be doing it. It's not something that IT should be working on. And often that's difficult to understand because there's maintenance work, there's foundational work, there's other things in the organization that have to happen in order for the lights to be kept on. But the question that needs to be answered is, are we doing those maintenance things, or are we doing things outside of the goals? Are they really needed? And if they, yeah, it's a good measuring stick. If I've got a system that I'm keeping up on a day-to-day basis, and really that system has to do with real estate, let's say, and in the goals for the organization, they don't own their own stores. It's mainly, they maybe rent space, or possibly they've got a third party who is handling all the real estate transactions. Well, then why do I have a real estate system that I need to keep up? Again, enterprise architecture is more about, it's not that it has nothing to do with technology, but it has more to do with the alignment of IT and what it's doing in support of the business. And again, like I said, I've been working with CIOs and CTOs over the last 4 or 5 years, and often having that conversation with them is either a very difficult thing in the beginning, or sometimes they really get it, and that's why I've come into the organization, to help them understand those things. So enterprise architecture, again, alignment of IT to business, very broad subject, very, very broad topic. How do you make sure that you're doing the right things? Well, luckily we've got, in Sogeti, we've got many tools, and one of those things is a dynamic architecture. It was a concept and written into a book several years ago that kind of helps define in everyday language how enterprise architecture can be brought to bear into an organization. And I'll go into several of the topics on DYA here in a moment, but at the top level, the dynamic architecture is really about two things. It's about the architecture itself, and that architecture is not only technology, but it's also the business alignment that IT can have. And the second is really the processes for making sure that that content is refreshed and it continues to be valid for the organization. And I think one of the best slogans that are in the instructions that I've talked with Eric and several other folks about who had to do with DYA, and one of the things that does say about architecture is, don't develop more architecture than your organization needs. And I think the only thing I would add to the end of that would be, or more than your organization can handle. Because often we deal with organizations that are on the low end of a maturity scale, and I can talk to them about architectural vision. I can talk to them about information architecture and design and a gap analysis, and even get them on a roadmap to moving to a 2B state. But if they are still trying to get their arms around how they align with the business, then all these other tools are really not going to help them, because they can't understand them yet. So don't do more of the architecture than your organization needs at that moment, or more than they can handle at that moment. Those are the types of things I keep in mind. This is a great way of communicating with the organization or with anyone about what the point of architecture is. Architecture is about communication. Architecture is about change. Architecture is about moving the organizations, the business, IT forward. And so on this scale, we've got low and high and low and high. So if your architectural awareness is low and your integration in the organization, how many people are using it? If it's low, it's a losing battle. You really aren't doing anything. Is really the case. If your integration in the organization is high, meaning you've got lots of processes and lots of paperwork and lots of things, but the awareness is low, then it's a barrier. And this is where often people find the architectural boards are barriers to success or to progress, because it's more about checking boxes in a checkbox, or making sure that people adhere to the process, as opposed to really making something happen. And this is often people's experience. The other experience is when it's isolation, where the architectural awareness is high. Hey, we know architecture exists and we know we got a bunch of architects running around, but integration in the organizations, no one really doing it. Then it's isolation. Then that's the classic ivory tower, which I forgot the person's name, but there was an article on the front page of SogetiLabs talking about ivory tower, and it's exactly right. If you've got ivory tower architects or process, it really holds people back. It gives people a bad taste in their mouth. It really doesn't do anything good for the organization at all. What you want to do is get to the enabling part, where everyone understands that architecture exists in the organization, and they also understand how to use it or how it can benefit them. And once you have those two things, architecture is actually pushing the organization forward and actually having a good benefit. So a couple of questions coming in. What I'll do, we had about 30, 40 minutes, Charlie said, so I wanted to hit some of these points, and then we can hit these questions and discussions afterwards. Please keep sending them in if you want to, and we can hit these things towards the end. One of the things, again, in Sogeti, we have access to many different tools, and a couple of the things we do have access to, aside from the dynamic architecture, is IAF, Integrated Architecture Framework. This is the Capgemini framework and set of deliverables that has been used over a number of years. It's a pretty well used and pattern based approach to architecture. Now, that architecture framework isn't necessarily just about enterprise architecture. It is about designing systems. So it's on that solution and software end of the architecture as well. So you can use it as the engine for actually achieving a project or building systems or modernizing or whatever. And in addition to that, IAF was actually Capgemini very active in the Open Group initiative around TOGAF, which stands for the Open Group Architecture Framework, and that's a open sourced architecture framework that many organizations use. Different organizations have got their own flavor of it, but it's a well-known architecture framework, and has, again, a lot of artifacts and a lot of deliverables. And if you're familiar with IAF, some of TOGAF looks very familiar. So if you use dynamic architecture with the slogan of only do as much architecture as you need, and you use some of the high-touch thoughts around dynamic architecture as the what are you trying to accomplish? And if you use IAF/TOGAF, one or the other or both, as artifacts and deliverables, can be actually the how of what you try to accomplish. What I don't recommend is using every bit of IAF and or TOGAF. In fact, I think that'd be close to impossible to do. But to be familiar with those two frameworks, pick out the deliverables that make the most sense. Use those either on a regular basis or decide up front, I'll need an architectural vision, I'll need the business architecture document, I'll need the technology architecture document, and a few other deliverables out of TOGAF, and put those things together, and there is your engine for actually making a project or building a system. One of the things we've done over here in the U.S. is put together a few classes to familiarize folks with both IAF and TOGAF so that they know what's there, make some recommendations about what could be used on different types of projects, and let people figure it out for themselves, and whenever they do go to a project. But like I said, bringing all three of these things together can be very powerful. You're not starting from a blank page. You're starting with the understanding that I want to have very high touch and very focused content through dynamic architecture, and then deliverables and an engine for moving it forward with the other two frameworks. And this is how I have tried to make architecture real in an organization. Back to the question, does it actually matter, and do you want repeatability? If I can use just the bits that are appropriate or that I feel are appropriate out of these different approaches, then architecture can actually start to move in that enabling, be in that enabling quadrant, be high architectural awareness and high integration into the organization. These are tangible things. We're consultants. We're asked to make things happen. We're not just, we just don't get to show up and spout off, say a couple of opinions and leave. We often have to make things happen in the organization, and architecture can be a very important part of that, and using these frameworks is are enabling for that. So the rest of what I've got here is really some of the things around how to make some of the things happen. If you're familiar with the DYA, this is the 10 principles. This is often some good guide points into what you're trying to accomplish on a project or with the system. Architecture is strategic if IT is strategic. The end goal of enterprise architecture is making sure that IT is actually doing something for the business. So if IT is strategic, then anything you do in it is going to be viewed as strategic and supportive. Architecture facilitates the speed of change. It needs to not be held down into process and take months and months to make decisions. Either you make decisions up front or have the framework of making decisions so that you can react to change very quickly. First thing that will make a business organization upset with you is that they have an opportunity to make some money and you spend months and months trying to decide what technology to use or how to move forward, or you know, if you spin around and not really understand what the business opportunity is, it's a great way to lose business support for you. And again, back down to that, business objectives govern the development of the architecture. If you're not doing what the business wants to do, what's making that organization grow, then you might as well not do it. This deck is available, so I'm not going to read all of this stuff. You know, feel free to download this or look through it in your own time. One of the other things that I think is important, the level of architecture is continually raised if the architecture is aligned to important business change. You know, back to that example, if the business has an opportunity and needs to grow, you know, they want to grow by 30%, they want to grow their bottom line revenue by 30%, building systems or having systems built already that can expand and grow with the business is important. If you don't already have that, then plan for that, partner with the business, find out what their goals are 1, 3, and 5 years down the road so that you can react better. The first time that you get presented with a business need, you may not be able to react to it very well, but if you know what their goals are down the road, you'll be able to react to it a lot better. The architectural principles and processes must be an integral part of the organization. This isn't just a paper exercise. This isn't just a bunch of folks getting in the room once a month or once a quarter, having lunch and pontificating about cool things in technology. This is about actual work. This is actually integrating, and it should become, I like to call it a tradition in IT. It should become tradition. Everyone should know how architecture fits into the organization and the process that you go through in order to define a problem, to design around it, and then to implement it. They shouldn't have a book that they have to go back to and read about, okay, what stage am I at right now? It should be tradition. It should be second nature. It should be understandable enough for them to know how to proceed it, but it should be natural. Those are the goals. I mean, if you get there, I've gotten there with a couple of organizations, and it really is really is eye-opening for the business and for the IT leadership. But it's not something that you get to right off the bat. So this is a model of in the dynamic architecture about a path of business need and how you can actually proceed with solving a business need. So if you follow the arrows, the new development comes in. There's a discussion with the business, with project leadership, with IT about the project itself, and you can make a decision. One is you can develop without architecture. And what this means is either A, I have not matured enough to the point where the architecture can respond fast enough. So we are going to do an ad hoc project and move forward in a fashion that that is appropriate for the need. Or it's a development without architecture. It's into an area that we haven't gotten into yet. We have a basis of architecture, but perhaps we haven't addressed this particular area. That's fine. Don't hold things up just because the architecture doesn't exist or just because you're not ready for it. Perform the project, deploy, which is the IT solutions, go ahead and deploy it. And what I don't have here is a little loop back into the system that says, what did we learn from this development without the architecture? What can we incorporate back into the organization? If you do have enough architecture, if you do have enough pieces, then you can go into, perform architectural services. And this is what IT can provide, either around business, architecture, information, or technology architecture. And I'll touch on a couple of those here in a minute. But this is where I do have enough architecture, I have enough things answered that I can proceed and, actually have some deliverables and actually have some, a way forward with architecture. Development with the architecture and move forward. One of the other things, there's a line straight, it's maybe difficult to see, but from strategic dialogue directly into development with architecture. Let's say I have enough things, it is tradition enough, I don't have to make a stop to decide what kind of services I need to provide. I just can move straight forward. It's become tradition, it's become part of the nature of IT, and I can move forward without any kind of stops. I can go directly into the project. And this might not necessarily be a goal, but this would certainly be something that the business would see as a great value. I've now decreased the amount of time that it takes in order to deploy those IT solutions. So the architectural services, what we do provide, and again, these are opinions. These are things that I've seen in the industry and working with other customers to say that these would be important, and I would recommend doing these types of things on a regular basis. Some of these additional steps are things that if you have the capability or the ability to do or to be explicit with, to definitely do. And again, this is my opinion. These are things that I've seen, but they are based on dynamic architecture tenets and based on IAF/TOGAF type deliverables. So the architectural vision, this is actually, it's at its simplest level, it's a scope statement. What are we going to try to accomplish? And it's really explaining back to the person who's asking you to help them what you're going to do for them. So defining the scope, identifying the people, stakeholders, and decision makers. Here's the people you're going to get the information and the decisions from. Confirming what the business goals and drivers are. What do they want to do, and what does done look like? If you're familiar with Agile approach, there's a definition of done. What does this thing look like when we're finished? I need to know what that goal and that target is. And then how do we measure that success? The outputs can be architectural principles. Here's reusable principles. We use these technologies. We go in this manner. Tailored architecture framework, and this is where you can take IAF and TOGAF, distill it down into parts that you want to use. And then baseline target business architecture and what exists. So you want to make sure that you know what exists today so that you can identify what needs to be changed and then actually easily show what things are being changed. So that's the architectural vision. Business architecture, and some of these repeat on each other. This is developing the target business architecture so that the business side can actually take advantage of the change that you're going to give them. And that may sound odd, but a business can request something, you give it to them, and then they don't know how to use it, or actually their organization isn't mature enough, or they asked the wrong question, and you delivered something that they really didn't intend. So you want to make sure that the business architecture exists, or the understanding that they can actually take advantage of it. So select reference tools and models. This is either already exists in the organization, or here's additional tools or things you're going to need to do in order to take advantage of the change. The baseline, make sure you know what exists. The gap analysis, based on the change, what do we need to do in order to fill this gap, resolve the impacts, and define the roadmap. How do we actually move forward? So the output is the definition of that business architecture, the baseline, what do we have today, and how are we going to move forward, the gap analysis. So that's the business architecture, and if you'll notice, a lot of the information systems architecture, which is the technology, looks exactly the same. What do we have today? What is the change? How does that change impact the existing environment? And what do we do to actually move it forward, which is the roadmap and outputs there. So that's information, and then technology architecture, same type of idea. And I apologize. The information architecture is more around data and information services. The technology is actually the technology. You know, the architect, the programming languages, tools you're going to use, operating systems, security, those types of things. So that is a quick overview. And again, back to those questions of does architecture matter and is repeatability needed? In my experience, I've seen the ability, some things actually benefit organizations. And what I hopefully imparted to you is some ways that you can actually make that happen in a tangible way. So thank you for your time. And some folks have thrown out some questions, but if you'd like to just jump on or unmute your microphone and ask, that can also be done too. And I apologize for reading people's names incorrectly. Joss Punter, how do you know when you have enough architecture? And that's a really good question. Part of it could be if you have enough architecture, in order to, the business is supplying you with questions or needs, and you have enough answers in order to make that move forward. So, for example, we have an organization that I'm working with today who's in the retail business. They sell furniture, and they want to, last year they came to us and said, we want to start delivering furniture. They're a furniture store, and people come to pick up their furniture, but they wanted to start delivering it. Last year, they said, how can we make this happen with the systems that we have today? We looked at it, and we figured out that what they had today was a lot of legacy and mainframe, and it could be done to help them deliver furniture with those systems, but it would be as much manual as it would be automated. So what we determined is we didn't have enough technology architecture in-house, and the information architecture didn't exist as well, or at least not enough. So at that point, we didn't have enough architecture. Great. We spent about 4 or 5 months defining those things, defining what they wanted to accomplish, another 2 or 3 to build it, and got them up and running in about 6 or 7 months. Since that time, they've come back to us with 2 new business objectives, and with very little change. And by very little, I mean by just changing a few things with the existing systems we built for them several months ago. We were able to help them achieve the new business objectives. So at this point, I believe we have enough architecture because we can absorb those questions and those objectives and really be able to give them what they need. Where does the best architecture emerge from? And this is from Joss again. If I understand the question correctly, where does maybe how do you know that you have the right architecture or the right customization of the architecture? And I would say this is where the best architecture comes from experience and from actually using technology. I've been places where a services architecture just wouldn't make sense because they are a very point-to-point, low maturity organization who really is making enough money today and their objectives are being met by the systems and the approach that they have today. The best architecture is the one that has emerged over time, supports those mainframe and legacy systems, and there's no need to change, or at least if they want to change, they got to have a good reason to change. Hopefully that approaches that. Ben Visser, the quadrant appears to imply that both awareness and integration in the organization needs to be high for architecture to be positive. But if both are low and in balance, would an organization benefit? That's actually an interesting point. Let's go back to that just so everyone kind of sees the graphic. So yes, the graphic implies if you have high awareness and high organizational integration, then architecture works, and it works at the best manner. But if both are low or at least imbalanced, could that also be okay? if you're trying to, I would think if you're trying to really implement an architectural approach and actually introduce it into the organization, and people don't understand what you're doing, or if they don't understand how to use it, then there's going to be frustration in the organization. Now, everyone may be on the same page because, both points are low. And perhaps that's the opportunity at that point to really point out, this is why we need the change. But I would think that there'd be a level of frustration that would come about if you truly wanted to push forward architecture. Again, back to my other example, the organization that had enough, architecture, they knew how to support their business and to make things happen. Perhaps not the whole organization needs to understand, although that doesn't make sense to me. Everyone really needs to understand, and it needs to be a tradition in the organization. Balance is good, but I would think that perhaps it might not work. But that's an interesting question about the balance. Is domain knowledge crucial or just beneficial for an EA? Interesting question. Domain knowledge meaning you have deep knowledge of either the technology domain or the business domain. So security, for example, or of retail pricing. It is I won't say crucial, because you can actually get around it. You can actually get around defining your architecture without a domain knowledge, but it's extremely beneficial if you're trying to define, what do I need for my company? What kind of security do I need? And if I don't understand the business domain and other technology domains like platform and tools, then it's going to be very difficult for me to define a really good security approach for myself. So I've been to some organizations where we've tried to go through the domain definition and domain description phase, and what we've found is folks that don't understand their own domains, really, that's part of the problem, is they don't understand what IT is there to do at a simple level. They don't understand what they're trying to accomplish for the business. So it's a good exercise to go through to really stretch their brains and make them understand, and maybe come to the realization that some of the things they're doing today really aren't necessary, or they may have 3 different tools that are doing the same thing. Going deep into that domain, they'll see that, they'll understand that all of a sudden, and there'll be perhaps the bravery to actually do something about that, to get rid of 2 of those systems, get rid of the things that aren't beneficial to them. One follow-up from Josh: could you say that the best architecture's requirements and designs merge from self-organizing teams? Yeah, I think definitely it could, because self-organizing teams have found the way through to meet needs, to solve problems, whatever. I think the only danger there is if you have many self-organizing teams doing projects for example, in agile teams. I have agile teams working in different paths and different streams. If those people don't join up at a certain point and share their experience and share what they have found, then there's a danger that you'll get fragmentation. Yes, those teams can still move forward and still self-organize and and take care of their problems. But at an enterprise level, if they don't come back together at a certain point, then they won't gain the knowledge or the experience from each other. So yeah, I think it could. Self-organizing teams would be a great point at which that architecture could come to being, but make sure that communication comes back around. Let's see. We've just a couple more minutes. I don't want to hold up the other presentation. What I can do is take some of these questions if I don't get to them and answer them back. Last one, you told create an architecture within a month or 3 to 4 would be beneficial to create it faster feedback, faster ways to adapt. Yes, absolutely. The faster, the better. And not just to get it done, but to get it to the point that you can actually execute it and learn some experience from it, and to see if it actually works. The faster, the better. Again, keep going back to Agile because I think it's a great way to run teams. One of the tenets in Agile is to fail faster. I don't want to wait 3 or 4 months for me to figure out that I'm going down the wrong. I'd much rather fail within a week so that I know that I can come back around and reform and refactor what I have. So yeah, sooner the better. So thank you again. I'll take the rest of these questions. I'll copy, paste them, and send them to Charlie, and he can maybe distribute them. Would that be good, Charlie? Okay, great. So
very good.
Thanks, appreciate it, and thanks, and hope to be talking with you again very soon.
Excellently, thank you. I was really convinced that we would get a lot of feedback, and I'm gladly surprised that we actually did. So that's good. If you have any other questions for Lee, so you that are attending or the people that will watch the recording, you are free to contact him and open a discussion on TeamPark. That's an interesting topic, and I think even people that are not working directly with architecture might be interested in bringing their inputs. Okay, we are right on schedule for you, Lara. So I'll leave you the floor. Just to introduce you, you are working for Sogeti UK, and you came to us, to SogetiLabs, for a project that you are working on that I think is really interesting and that might benefit from our inputs as well. So that's why I invited you to present it today to the rest of the community. I'm very glad you accepted. So Laura is working for Markham, Marketing and Alliances Manager for Sogeti UK. And now she's got the floor to present us the podcast project. So Laura, I will just display your presentation, and now you are ready to go.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Charlie, that you invited me for today's meeting. Hi, everybody. As kindly introduced by Charlie, my view of today is hopefully to share with you an overview of what we're trying to achieve with a new podcast program and gain some of your interest in supporting us so that we can spread the word around some of the thought leadership that we're already doing so much at a great level from SogetiLabs, but through a slightly diverse channel. So I'll just walk you through who's behind this. So myself, Joe, who has done a huge amount of research on this project already, and Lynn Valenti. We're very keen to push this forward. So if you've got any questions, then you can direct them at either one of us forwards. So why are we looking to build a Sogeti podcast program? Really, we're trying to create a new channel for messaging distribution. You know, we're seeing a lot of people accessing material on the move. I mean, even a case study we've done recently with mobile testing for one of our customers. They wanted to do responsive website testing. They're seeing 35% of their customers for an airport looking at flights online. And so many people are accessing material on the move. And I think people can be informed through a podcast more quickly than through reading a white paper. And some people may not even want to be reading blogs, but an alternative mechanism, so video is always good for them. So as I said, hands-free audio content is really popular at the moment, and I think it can enable us to create some really nice discussion forums and make us look like a very modern business having a podcast channel. So what we're looking really to achieve with this is, as I said, a broader distribution beyond the blogs and social media efforts that we're currently doing. We're doing really well, but you know, sales people need more materials to point people to. We need to show off, you know, our assets to our people, and showcase their excellent ideas in a way that makes us personable as a business, as a services business. And really, as I said, be perceived as innovative. So looking at how to deliver it, we've already looked into using Audacity podcasting software and recording using certain microphones. We can also do this on Skype. It's very simple. And Lynn has kindly been looking at integrating it with our new website, which is being revamped and redesigned at the moment. And setting it up on iTunes for a podcast channel is really easy for us. So as you can imagine, we can start promoting episodes on through YouTube, globally, you know, on the SogetiLabs website, etc. So the setup is very simple, and of course, we're looking to enable whoever would like to help us deliver this in as many ways as possible. So why am I here speaking to you all, hoping for your support? Well, really looking at you as thought leaders to influence the initial interest in opening episodes for us, to help drive interesting content and discussion, and really drive involvement and buy-in across the Sogeti Group. With your visibility already in the business, I think it would really set the podcast program up for success. And so we're already in discussion with Barry Weston in the UK, and we have Rick Marcellus coming over from the Netherlands to present in July on Shift Left. And so I've put it to them to be our first, unless we can do one sooner, our first podcast, with a style around the debate, conversation around the differences in Shift Left in action between the UK and the Netherlands. It's just an idea for debate so far. We're still looking to script it further. But, the style of this could be a debate, it could be a conversation, it could be thought leadership, how-tos around whether it's testing, whether it's another topic. And, the topics are vast. We're seeing more and more people on our blog lately looking at various content that, from application development to testing, cloud, mobility. But, there's some really nice ways of sharing, knowledge sharing through a podcast if it's two people having a conversation. So it's certainly a new way of sharing information. So in order to kick this program off, as I said, you have somebody buying into this already, which is great, but we'd love this to be something that SogetiLabs takes to heart. We'd love this for you to want to get involved. So if initially we could get 4 people to volunteer, maybe that's 2 people in one country, 2 people in another. It doesn't matter where you are. As I said, you can be based anywhere or support you online. But initially, have that conversation around a specific topic and start brainstorming ideas about what could be, the initial first 2 podcasts in this trial. And really that would be enough to set us up, I think, for success and show the group that, this is what we're doing and there's some great things coming through. So should you be really keen, I just wanted to leave you with this, my contact details and also Lynn's contact details. I would love you to start thinking about an alternative to the blogs that you're currently doing, to the information sharing that you're already doing on calls like this, and thinking about how we could externally be seen as a fantastic business to work for. So I think really that's it from me. I open to the floor for any questions that you have on this presentation. Sorry, I can't hear you, Charlie. I can see you speak.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was just saying thank you, and I think it's excellent. I would just like to add a few words about that. I think we do have the thought leadership. We already proved it with the blog that is running very well at the moment. The publications that we have also, the technology outlook, insight on innovation. So we do have the content. I feel like the podcast and why I invited you is just to provide another way of sharing it, just like you said. And I feel like some people might be interested because they might be more at ease just talking instead of writing. So I assume that some of you might be interested in this technique. As we said before, SogetiLabs has 2 basics that are required for anyone that is part of the community, which are the blog and the mentoring program, where we would expect everyone to actually contribute. And then we have some optionals that are writing for our publications, etc. Podcast would be a part of it. So it's not compulsory. We will not ask you to do it if you don't want to do it. But I really feel like I'm convinced that a lot of you can benefit from it and would like to do it, I'm sure. And I have some names in mind. So anyone that's interested, maybe you can already volunteer. Maybe if someone has a topic, it's a short recording, so it will not take a lot of time. I also think that maybe when you write a blog post, you can also do a small podcast about it. So that would be the same topic. You wouldn't have to rewrite everything. I'm convinced as well as this new format will be beneficial, and I can give you some figures about the latest blog post that we did about insight and innovation. David Escoffier, Ben, you also, and Gert Vanover, you recorded some nice videos about your articles, and it worked really, really well. So I think these new formats that are not only text-based are really, really beneficial. So if any one of you want to maybe comment or submit another topic or volunteer, answer to Laura, you're more than welcome. And Laura, if you have some other things.
The only thing I was going to say, Charlie, is I know that not everybody from SogetiLabs has joined today. Is there any way that you could circulate my presentation to the wider group as well, just to make sure that everybody has a view of it, and if the idea sparks something from in terms of interest, then hopefully they'll get in touch.
Of course, the webinar is recorded, so the link to actually watch it will be shared with the rest of the community, and your presentation will be available on Teambox for them to download. So no problem, we will make a lot of publicity around that. I don't know if anyone's actually attending would like to say a word about that, or if someone interested in taking part in this initiative. So I know some of you don't have a microphone. Just you say maybe create a shout out via a podcast instead of mailing a PowerPoint. Nice idea. Maybe Laura, you could create the first postcard presenting the podcast project, just to make people able to see what you want to do.
Okay.
Should it be an idea?
Definitely. It could be an idea. I think, we're in the process of ordering all the equipment for the UK, so I don't see why not. As I said, we've already got one lined up at the moment, so if this is a slow burn, then hopefully that will encourage people, because that will be more over the kind of format that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think an example would maybe trigger some people into participating, though I'm sure we already have people in the community that are actually aware about what the podcasts are and already have topics in mind. So obviously we are 14 attendees at this webinar, and we are more than 80 now in the community. So there are lot more people that could support us. Do we have any more comments on the podcast? Comment, suggestions? And the people around, if you don't have a microphone, you can still chat, send a question. And if not, any other topics that you would like to cover? We meet online once a month, so maybe you have other things you'd like to discuss before we close this webinar. And if so, raise your hand or be silent forever. And if not, well, yes, I'm glad you like my humor. Any information on the next webinar? No, not yet. Well, we already have the date, so it's in 1 month. Let me check the next one. So it's always the second Wednesday of each month, if I'm not mistaken. So the next one is on June 11. and then we will make a break during the summer because I assume all of you will go on holiday, well-deserved holiday. So July and August, we will not have webinars. We will go back live on September. So June 11, we don't have a topic yet. So if anyone wants to volunteer to present something like Lara did or like Lee did, you are more than welcome. It gives you a lot of visibility. So take this as an opportunity to get famous. If we don't have any other questions, maybe we should close this one. Thank you all for attending this session. I will send you the link, all the presentations, and I look forward to talking to you again. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Lara, for presenting your interesting presentations, and I wish you a very good day. Goodbye.